windshield wipers beat a rhythm I'd memorized over 14 years of hauling freight through these mountains. Slap squeak, slap squeak. Eastern Kentucky in November meant rain that couldn't decide if it wanted to freeze, mist that hung in the hollers thick enough to taste, roads that twisted back on themselves so many times you forgot which direction you'd started. I shifted down for another hairpin turn, the Jake brake growling as the rig slowed. The load wasn't heavy. Plumbing fixtures headed to a hardware distributor in Pikeville. But weight didn't matter much on these routes. What mattered was knowing when to brake before the curve, not during. What mattered was keeping your mortgage paid and your ex-wife's lawyer from calling about missed support payments. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. The screen lit up with Karen Parker's name from dispatch. I thumbed it to speaker. Yeah. Oscar. Karen's voice came through flat and professional, the way it always did. No warmth, no small talk. We'd worked together 6 years, and I didn't know if she had kids or a dog or what she did on weekends. How far are you from Hazard? 40 minutes, maybe 50 with this weather. I'm rerouting you. Emergency run. Hazard to Black Mountain. Client needs it tonight. I checked the dashboard clock. 8:15. I'm not going to make Black Mountain and back before... Quadruple your standard rate. My hands tightened on the wheel. Quadruple. That was... I did the math twice because it seemed wrong. That was 3 mortgage payments. That was getting ahead on child support instead of scrambling every month. Maybe even having enough left over to fix the transmission on my truck instead of nursing it along with prayer and cheap fluid. What's the catch? Karen didn't answer right away. The silence stretched long enough that I glanced at the phone to make sure the call hadn't dropped. Specific route requirements, she said finally. Specific timing. You'll get full briefing at the depot in Hazard. Bentley Kim's handling the loading. What kind of requirements? The kind that pay quadruple rate, Oscar. You want it or not? I got 2 other drivers I can call. She didn't, probably. Not at 8:30 on a Thursday night with weather coming in. But I'd learned during the divorce that desperation showed on you worse than a neon sign, and people could smell it from a mile off. I'll take it. Depot in Hazard. Bentley's expecting you by 9:30. She hung up before I could ask anything else. I drove the next 40 minutes running numbers in my head. Quadruple rate. Even after fuel costs and the extra hours, that was real money. The kind that meant breathing room. The kind that meant not waking up at 3 a.m. doing math about which bill could slide another week. The Hazard Depot sat off Highway 15 in a gravel lot ringed by sodium lights that turned the mist orange. 2 other rigs idled near the warehouse, but the loading bay Bentley waved me toward stood empty. I backed in, watching him in the side mirror, tall and lean, moving with the careful economy of someone whose back had given him trouble for decades. I climbed down from the cab. The air smelled like diesel and wet asphalt and the particular staleness of warehouse dust. Oscar. Bentley nodded once. He held a clipboard in one hand and a manila envelope in the other, the paper gone soft and dingy with age. What am I hauling? Construction equipment. Surveying gear mostly, crated and tagged. He gestured toward the warehouse. We'll have you loaded in 20 minutes. Karen said specific route requirements. Highway 119. Bentley said it flat, watching my face. I waited for the rest. The old stretch, between here and Black Mountain. Something cold settled in my stomach. That section's been closed 30 years. 36. Bentley shifted his weight, clipboard tucked under one arm now. Since 87. But it ain't closed for you. Not tonight. The mist had thickened into proper rain, drops tapping against the metal roof that jutted out over the loading bay. I should have walked away, should have climbed back in my cab and called Karen and told her to find someone else. You gotta travel it between 2 and 5 a.m., Bentley continued. Not before, not after. Window's 3 hours exactly. Why? Because that's the requirement. He held out the manila envelope. Everything you need to know is in here. 8 rules. You follow them exactly, no deviation, you'll be fine. I took the envelope. The paper felt thin and greasy, worn soft from handling. Someone had written Highway 119 Protocol across the front in faded blue ink, the handwriting old-fashioned and precise. What happens if I don't follow them? Bentley met my eyes for the first time. His were pale blue, deep-set under heavy brows, and they held something I couldn't quite name. Not fear. Resignation, maybe. The look of someone who'd seen things he'd decided not to think about anymore. Best case, you turn around and come back empty. Worst case, he shook his head. Just follow the rules. I opened the envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Same age manila, same careful handwriting. 8 numbered lines. 1. Maintain exactly 35 mph. No faster, no slower. 2. Ignore all hitchhikers, regardless of appearance or distress. 3. Never stop between mile markers 8 and 16. 4. Keep AM radio tuned to 920. Do not change the station. 5. If approached by men in mining clothes, offer cigarettes. Do not speak. 6. Avoid eye contact with anyone in work clothes. 7. Take the upper bridge at Devil's Fork. 8. Continue 3 miles past destination before turning around. I read through them twice. They had the rhythm of folklore, the kind of superstitious nonsense that accumulated around old places. Don't whistle in a coal mine. Don't take the first piece of bread. Throw salt over your left shoulder. This is a joke. No. Bentley's voice stayed flat. It ain't. Someone's having a laugh. 17 drivers tried this route in the past year. He took the clipboard from under his arm, flipped through pages until he found what he wanted, then turned it toward me. A spreadsheet, names and dates in neat columns. 12 names had red X marks next to them. 5 had green check marks. 5 came back. The rain drummed harder overhead. I stared at the spreadsheet, at those 12 red X marks, at names I half recognized from truck stops and dispatcher chatter. Danny Kowalski. He'd had 3 kids. Amy Chen. She'd been saving for her daughter's college. What happened to them? Don't know. They didn't come back to tell us. And you're still sending people? Bentley took the clipboard back, tucked it under his arm again. Client pays quadruple rate. Drivers know the risks before they take it. You can walk away right now, Oscar. No one's forcing you. I looked at the envelope in my hands, at those 8 rules written in careful script, at the promise of money I desperately needed, at the spreadsheet with 12 drivers who hadn't returned. Follow the rules exactly, Bentley said. Don't try to be smart. Don't try to figure it out. Just do what the paper says, and you'll be the 6th driver to make it through. I folded the envelope and shoved it in my jacket pocket. The paper crinkled against my chest, right over my heart. Get me loaded, I said. I got a deadline to make. The road started climbing around mile marker 2. Crumbling asphalt stretched ahead in my headlights, the center line faded to nothing in most places. Pavement cracked and buckled where tree roots had worked underneath for 36 years. Nobody had maintained this stretch since 1987. The forest pressed close on both sides, branches forming a tunnel overhead that my running lights couldn't quite penetrate. I checked the speedometer. 35 exactly. Rule 1. The manila envelope sat on the passenger seat where I'd tossed it after pulling onto Highway 119. I'd memorized all 8 rules during the wait at the depot, reading them over and over while Bentley's crew loaded the trailer, construction and surveying equipment, conveyor components for a mining operation. That's what the manifest said. My hands felt steady on the wheel. That surprised me some. The dashboard clock read 2:17 a.m., right in the window. 3 hours to get through this stretch and make the delivery at Black Mountain, then drive 3 miles past before turning around. Rule 8. I'd be clear by 5 if everything went according to... Movement caught my eye. The envelope on the passenger seat. I glanced over. The papers inside were shifting, not from road vibration or wind through the cab vents. Actually moving, rearranging themselves. The edge of the top page slid backward, revealing a different document underneath. My foot stayed steady on the accelerator. 35 May. I reached over and pulled the manifest free. The loading supervisor at Hazard had clipped it to the envelope before I left. Standard procedure for any haul. I'd read it twice, knew exactly what it said. Except now it didn't say that anymore. The typed lines had changed. Where it listed conveyor components, model C447, and survey theodolites, precision grade, now it read personnel transfers, shift rotation documentation, and relocated workforce manifests. The equipment weights were gone. In their place, columns of names, dozens of them, maybe 100. I held the paper in my right hand, steering with my left, watched the words continue shifting. Smith, J became Morrison, R became Chen, W. The names scrolled past faster than I could read them, replacing themselves with new ones every few seconds. The paper felt normal, regular weight, regular texture, just the words changing. I set it back on the seat. A sound came from behind me, muffled, distant, coming through the cab wall from the trailer. I'd driven trucks for 16 years. Knew every noise a rig could make, cargo shifting, straps settling, the particular rattle of whatever you were hauling. This wasn't any of those. This was metal striking stone, sharp rhythmic impacts, pick, pick, pick. The sound grew clearer. Not one pickaxe, several, a whole crew working in unison, the way miners did when they needed to move rock fast. My grandfather used to talk about that, the rhythm they'd establish. Men swinging in sequence so the blows never stopped, just constant percussion echoing through the tunnels. He'd hum sometimes while he worked in his garage, wordless melodies that matched that rhythm. I heard those melodies now, voices singing in the trailer behind me, low and rough, the harmonies imperfect but practiced. Work songs, the kind men sang to pass 12-hour shifts in the dark, voices carrying through the mountain's belly where headlamps couldn't reach far enough to ease the isolation. My grandfather had been dead for 9 years. The pickaxe sounds continued. Pick, pick, pick. The singing wove around them, never quite loud enough to make out words. Just the shape of the melody, the cadence I remembered from childhood visits when Grandpa would rebuild carburetors and hum those old songs without realizing it. I checked the speedometer again. 35. My hands hadn't moved. Mile marker 4 appeared in my headlights. The first figure stepped onto the road shoulder 50 yards ahead. He wore work clothes, dark coveralls, heavy boots. His face and hands were black with coal dust, the kind that got ground into your skin so deep no amount of scrubbing ever got it all out. He raised one arm, flagging me down. The universal gesture, stop, emergency, help needed. I kept my speed steady. Rule 2, ignore all hitchhikers. More figures emerged as I approached. They came from the tree line on both sides of the road, materializing from gaps in the vegetation. 5 men. 8. A dozen. All wearing the same coal-blackened work clothes, all raising their arms to flag me down. Their mouths moved, shouting something. I couldn't hear them over the diesel engine and the pickaxe sound still coming from my trailer. I looked straight ahead. Not at the men, at the road beyond them, at the crumbling asphalt and the faded center line. Rule 6. Avoid eye contact with anyone in work clothes. But I had mirrors. The first group passed on my right side as I maintained exactly 35 mph. I caught their faces in the passenger mirror without meaning to. Just a glance. Just enough. Hollow eyes. That's what registered first. Not empty sockets, but eyes that had seen something drain out and leave nothing behind except the knowledge of what they'd lost. The closest man was missing 3 fingers on his left hand. The stumps looked old, healed over but never properly treated. Scar tissue thick and ropeless, where a doctor should have stitched clean edges. Another had burns across half his face. Old burns, decades healed. The kind of scarring you got from flash fires underground. Gas ignitions. The methane would catch and flare fast, too fast to run, and if you survived, you carried the proof on your skin forever. A third man had a caved-in section of skull above his right ear. The bone looked crumpled, pressed inward and never set right. Cave-in injury. Something had struck him hard enough to break bone, and he'd either kept working or they'd sent him back down before it healed proper. I forced my eyes forward. Back to the road. More figures appeared near mile marker 5. These came directly from the hillside, emerging from dark openings I hadn't noticed before. Mine shaft entrances, sealed over or collapsed or just abandoned when the seams played out. The men walked with purpose toward the road, their blackened faces turning to track my truck as I passed. One of them carried a lunch pail, the metal kind with a domed lid that workers used to bring underground. He held it up toward me, shaking it. The gesture looked urgent, desperate even. I kept my eyes on the asphalt. The singing from my trailer grew louder. Words came through now, though I couldn't make them all out. Something about darkness and stone, about brothers and home. The pickaxe rhythm never faltered underneath. My radio crackled. I'd tuned it to 9:20 a.m. before leaving the depot. Rule 4. Static had filled the frequency for the first 2 miles, just white noise and the occasional pop of interference. Now a voice cut through. Shift 3B. Report for muster. Coleman Mine, Shaft 7. The voice sounded distant. Tinny. The way broadcasts used to sound before they upgraded all the equipment, back when everything ran through tubes in analog transmission. Roll call, Anderson? A pause. Static. Here. Breckenridge? Here. Chen? Another pause, longer this time. The dispatcher's voice came back flatter. Chen marked absent. Kowalski? My hands tightened on the wheel. Danny Kowalski, one of the 12 red X's on Bentley's spreadsheet. Driver who'd taken this route and never came back. Kowalski marked absent. Morrison. The roll call continued. Names I didn't recognize mixed with ones I did. Amy Chen had been on that spreadsheet too. Both of them marked absent on a shift report for a mine that didn't exist anymore. Mile marker 6 appeared ahead. The figures thinned out past it. The last group stood clustered near a collapsed shaft entrance, watching my truck pass. One of them raised his hand, not flagging me down this time, just a wave. The kind you'd give a coworker heading out after your shift was just beginning. I didn't wave back. The radio shifted to a different frequency on its own. The dial didn't move, but the broadcast changed. Dispatch to all units. Incident reported at Harlan County Coal, Shaft 12. Methane detection at unsafe levels. Evacuate immediately. A different voice, younger, responded. Shaft 12, Roger. How many souls? 47 on the roster. Confirm evacuation count. Static filled the silence, long enough that I knew the count wouldn't match the roster. Dispatch, we have 31 accounted for. Repeat count. 31 souls evacuated. 16 still below. The first voice stayed professional, controlled. The kind of control that came from training and necessity, from knowing that panic killed faster than gas. Seal the shaft. Mark it contaminated. But dispatch, seal it. That's protocol. The frequency dissolved back into static. I'd read about that disaster. Harlan County Coal, Shaft 12. November 1974. 16 men died when methane ignited during a routine extraction. The investigation found that safety protocols had been ignored, that gas detection equipment was faulty, that the company had prioritized production over worker safety. The families sued. Settlement took 8 years. My grandfather had known 2 of the men who died. Went to both funerals. Stopped humming those work songs for a long time after. The radio crackled again. Another dispatcher, another mine. Bluefield operations, this is Central. Collapse reported in Shaft 4, Section C. Rescue teams mobilizing. How bad? Preliminary reports indicate full blockage, estimated 12 to 15 trapped. Equipment? En route, ETA 40 minutes. That disaster, I didn't know, could have been any of dozens that happened through the 70s and 80s back when coal was king and safety regulations were suggestions more than requirements. Before federal oversight, before MSHA had real authority, before companies couldn't just seal a shaft and mark the men inside as acceptable losses. The pickaxe sounds from my trailer had stopped, the singing too, just the diesel engine now, and the crackle of dead men's voices on my radio, and the darkness pressing close on both sides of this abandoned road. Mile marker 7 slid past. One more mile until the section where I couldn't stop no matter what. Rule 3. Never stop between mile markers 8 and 16. I checked my speed one more time. 35 exactly. The manifest on my passenger seat had settled into its new form. Personnel transfers. Relocated workforce. Names that kept changing, scrolling through lists of men who'd gone into mountains and never come back out. The temperature gauge hit the red zone at mile marker 12. I'd been watching it climb for the past quarter mile, creeping past the normal range, then into the warning zone, then spiking hard enough that the needle trembled against the pin. The engine made a sound I'd never heard in 15 years of driving, a grinding whine that cut through the pickaxe rhythm and the radio static. Heat billowed from under the hood, visible even in the darkness, steam or smoke or something worse rising in thick coils. I had maybe 30 seconds before the engine seized completely. Rule 3 said never stop between markers 8 and 16. I was at 12, dead center of the forbidden zone. But a blown engine meant I'd be stuck here anyway, stranded in whatever this stretch of Highway 119 had become. And I didn't figure the rules accounted for mechanical failure versus voluntary stops. At least that's what I told myself as I eased onto the shoulder. The truck rolled to a stop with a shudder that ran through the whole frame. I killed the ignition. The engine ticked and hissed, heat radiating through the firewall into the cab. My hands were shaking on the wheel. Sweat ran down my back, despite the November cold. The radio went silent first. Just cut out mid-word. The disaster reports from 1974 choking off into nothing. Then the pickaxe sounds from the trailer stopped. Complete silence. The kind that doesn't exist naturally. No wind, no insects, no distant anything. Just the cooling engine and my own breathing. I sat there maybe 10 seconds, trying to decide if I should pop the hood, check the radiator, see if this was something fixable, or if I'd just joined the list of red X's on Bentley's spreadsheet. That's when I noticed the trailer doors in my side mirror. They were standing wide open. I hadn't heard them open, hadn't felt the shift in weight or the change in air pressure. But both doors stood at full extension, the interior darkness visible beyond them. And I knew with absolute certainty I'd latched those doors myself back at the hazard depot, watched Bentley's crew secure them with the regulation pins and safety chains. My hand found the door handle without conscious decision. I stepped down onto the shoulder, boots crunching on gravel that shouldn't have been there. The road had been pure, crumbling asphalt for the past 10 miles. The air smelled wrong. Not the pine and decay I'd been breathing since marker 2. But something mineral and close. Underground air, the kind that hasn't seen sunlight in decades. I walked the length of the trailer. Each step felt like wading through water, resistance I couldn't name. The open doors loomed ahead, that interior darkness absolute and waiting. I reached the threshold and looked inside. The mining equipment was gone. In its place stood dozens of men in work clothes, arranged in perfect formation like a crew awaiting orders at a shaft entrance. 4 rows deep, maybe 15 across, all facing forward, all absolutely motionless. Their clothes were wrong, too old, styles from the 70s and 60s and earlier, denim and canvas and wool. Coal dust covered everything. Their skin had that same ashen quality I'd seen on the hitchhikers, that spectral pallor that wasn't quite death but wasn't anything living either. Nobody blinked. Nobody breathed. They just stood there, lunch pails and thermoses in hand, hard hats catching light that came from nowhere. One man stepped forward from the front row. He was shorter than me, maybe 5'9", but built solid the way miners get from years of swinging picks and hauling loads. Dark hair under a battered hard hat, both covered in coal dust, thick enough to obscure any original color. His eyes were pale gray, and they glowed. Actually glowed faint luminescence like foxfire in rotten wood. His left hand was missing 3 fingers, clean stumps that looked decades healed. Scars crossed his forehead in parallel lines. Cave-in damage. The kind that comes from timber giving way and rock coming down. You're stopped in the no-stop zone. His voice carried the formal working-class dialect I'd heard from older miners, the kind who'd learned English from company supervisors and union organizers back when both still mattered. Pronounced Appalachian accent, but precise. Commanding. This was a man used to being obeyed. Engine trouble? I nodded. Couldn't quite manage words yet. That happens sometimes. He glanced back at the formation of men, then returned his attention to me. The road doesn't take kindly to living engines. Tries to make everything match. You're Oscar Aguilar. 3rd run this month for a living driver. First one to stop in the forbidden zone and not disappear immediately. Who are you? Johnny Oliver. Foreman, Black Mountain Operations, Shaft 7. Died March 14th, 1976, when the secondary support gave way during a swing shift. Took 11 of us. He gestured at the men behind him. Most of them are back there. We work together now same as we did then. The words came out matter of fact, resigned. He could have been discussing a schedule change or a equipment malfunction. You're dead. Stating the obvious, but my brain needed to hear it said plain. We're all dead. Every man in this trailer died in Black Mountain's mines, cave-ins, explosions, methane ignition, black lung that finally quit letting air through. Some of us go back to the 40s. Few to the 20s. We're conscripted now. Eternal shift. We transport others who met similar fates, moving them between operations. He stepped closer to the trailer's edge, and I saw more scars, burns on his neck, a crooked set to his collarbone that spoke of breaks that healed wrong. Or didn't heal at all, just froze at the moment of death. There's a network, Johnny continued. Runs throughout Appalachian coal country. Everywhere men died underground for somebody else's profit. The network moves us, the industrial dead, between active mining operations. Our spectral labor supplements the living crews. We shore up tunnels that should have collapsed years ago. We dig seams that no safety inspector would ever approve. We don't need air, or light, or brakes. Just keep working, same as we did when we were breathing. Why? The question came out hoarse. Because the coal's still there, still profitable, and dead men don't file injury claims or join unions or complain about conditions. He said it without bitterness, just fact. Highway 119 serves as a collection point. This stretch gathers workers who died across Kentucky's mining history. All the disasters you've been hearing on that radio. The road pulls them in during those 3 hours, 2 to 5 a.m., when the barrier gets thin enough. Then drivers transport us to wherever the current operations need extra crews. Behind him, the formation of men remained motionless, waiting. I could see their faces now, coal-blackened and scarred, everyone carrying the marks of how they'd died. Crushed skulls, missing limbs, burns that had consumed flesh down to bone. The living drivers, Johnny said, and his glowing eyes fixed on mine with sudden intensity. The ones who break the protective protocols. They join the transported workforce. Their trucks become part of the operation. We found Danny Kowalski's rig 3 weeks back, hauling loads between Harlan and Pikeville. Amy Chen's runs the northern route now, up through West Virginia. They're driving still, but they're not living anymore. Not really. My throat had gone completely dry. The rules keep you out. The rules keep you separate, keep you living. Break them, and you cross over. Become part of the operation, another asset in the supernatural logistics network. He stepped back into the trailer, his form already starting to fade at the edges. Your engine will cool in 5 minutes. You can make it to the end of the route if you don't stop again. But you're in the zone now, Oscar. Right in the middle of it. And every second you stand here, the road's trying to decide if you belong to it. The trailer doors swung shut with a hollow boom that echoed wrong, lasting too long. I stumbled backward, nearly fell on the gravel shoulder. My hands hit the truck's side panel, solid and real, and still warm from the engine heat. The temperature gauge through the window showed the needle already dropping, falling from red back toward normal like the spike had never happened. I climbed back into the cab and sat there shaking. Johnny Oliver's words running through my head on repeat. Every second you stand here, the road's trying to decide if you belong to it. The GPS started flashing at mile marker 14, showing Devil's Fork half a mile ahead. Single bridge indicated on the screen, coordinates locked, route guidance unchanged from when I'd programmed it back at the depot. Rule 7 sat clear in my head. Take the upper bridge at Devil's Fork. Upper bridge implied 2 options. GPS showed 1. I kept the speedometer needle exactly on 35, watching the road curve through another stand of pine that hadn't seen maintenance equipment since Reagan's first term. The temperature gauge sat normal now, needle resting comfortable in the middle like the overheating had never happened. Engine hummed steady. Trailer weight pulled familiar behind me. The trees opened up. 2 bridges crossed the gorge ahead. I eased off the accelerator just enough to maintain speed without dropping below 35. My right foot wanted to hit the brake, wanted to stop and make sense of what I was seeing. But stopping in the no-stop zone had nearly cost me everything. And I'd just barely made it past mile marker 13 with Johnny Oliver's warning still fresh in my ears. The GPS kept showing 1 bridge. Single route across Devil's Fork, modern concrete span, state highway designation, no alternatives indicated. But through the windshield, I saw 2 distinct structures. The lower bridge sat maybe 40 feet below road level, concrete and steel, 4 lanes wide with proper barriers and reflective markers. Modern construction looked like it had been built within the last decade. Clean lines, professionally engineered. The kind of bridge that would carry logging trucks and coal haulers without breaking a sweat. The upper bridge rose directly ahead at road level, wooden trestle, railroad-style construction with timber supports blackened by age and weather. Planks showed gaps where wood had rotted through. No barriers on either side, just open air and a 200-foot drop to the creek below. The whole structure sagged in the middle, bowing under its own weight after decades of abandonment. I was doing 35 miles per hour toward a bridge that looked ready to collapse if a strong wind hit it wrong. The road didn't fork, didn't split into 2 paths offering a choice. Just continued straight toward the upper trestle while the concrete span sat below, solid and safe, and completely inaccessible from where I was driving. My hands tightened on the wheel. The manila envelope sat on the passenger seat where I dropped it after the engine trouble. Rules memorized, but still present. Take the upper bridge at Devil's Fork. Instructions clear, no explanation provided. Now I understood why. The concrete bridge below looked real, looked maintained, looked like the sensible choice any living driver would make if given the option. But it sat in the wrong position. Accessed by a road that didn't exist, visible but unreachable, unless I stopped and somehow climbed down through 40 feet of gorge, which would mean stopping, which would mean breaking Rule 3 all over again. The wooden trestle ahead was the upper bridge, the only bridge actually at road level, the only option that didn't require stopping or deviating from the route. I maintained speed. 50 yards to the trestle, 40, 30. The planks looked worse up close. Gaps showed between boards, some missing entirely, others hanging at angles where support beams had given way. The whole structure swayed slightly in the wind coming up through the gorge. No way it could support 18 tons of truck and cargo. No way it had carried traffic since the road closed in '87. 20 yards. I could see individual splinters in the wood. Could see rust eating through the bolts that held the framework together. Could see where whole sections had rotted black with moisture damage. 10 yards. My foot hovered over the brake pedal. Every instinct I'd developed in 15 years of driving screamed at me to stop, to reverse, to find another route. But Johnny Oliver's face hung in my mind, those pale gray eyes and missing fingers, the scars across his forehead from the cave-in that had killed him 47 years ago. The road tries to make living engines match its nature. I hit the trestle at exactly 35 miles per hour. The planks held. Shouldn't have, couldn't have. But the wood stayed solid under my tires, not even creaking as the full weight of the truck rolled onto the span. I gripped the wheel hard enough to hurt, keeping the path straight, no barriers on either side to stop me from pitching over the edge if I drifted 6 inches wrong. The trailer followed onto the trestle, 18 tons crossing rotted wood over a 200-foot drop. Everything held. I checked the side mirror. Had to see what was happening behind me. Had to confirm what I already knew in my gut. The concrete bridge was gone. Just gone. The modern span that had sat 40 feet below road level had vanished completely, leaving only empty air above the gorge. No structure, no supports, no evidence it had ever existed except the memory still fresh in my head. But something else had appeared in its place. Figures stood on the wooden trestle behind me, dozens of them, maybe more, lining both sides of the span I'd just crossed. Men in work clothes and hard hats, coal dust covering them head to toe, all raising their arms in unison, waving, not flagging me down, not trying to stop me. Just waving, hands moving back and forth in farewell gestures, the way you'd wave to someone heading off on a long trip. The way you'd wave to someone who'd made it through. I focused on the road ahead. The trestle ended 20 yards forward, solid ground rising to meet the far side of the gorge. The planks stayed firm under my tires, didn't crack, didn't shift, held together by something that had nothing to do with engineering and everything to do with rules I was following without understanding. Until now. The front wheels hit pavement on the far side, then the rear axle, then the trailer. Weight transferring from impossible wood to crumbling asphalt that felt solid as bedrock compared to what I'd just crossed. I exhaled. Hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. The mirror showed the trestle behind me, still standing, still sagging, still looking like it would collapse any second. The figures had vanished. Just empty bridge now, wooden planks and rusted bolts and gaps showing clear air to the creek far below. Mile marker 15 appeared on the roadside. One more marker until I cleared the no-stop zone completely. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I flexed my fingers, getting blood flowing again, maintaining exactly 35 while the road curved back into forest cover. Everything Johnny Oliver had told me was clicking into place now. Not just his words, but the meaning behind them, the structure holding this whole operation together. The concrete bridge had been the trap, the sensible choice, the modern span that looked safe and maintained and logical. The choice any living driver would make if they were thinking clearly, if they were using normal judgment, if they were applying standard reasoning to what they were seeing. But taking it would have meant stopping, would have meant deviating from the route, would have meant breaking the rules to pursue what looked like the safer option. And breaking the rules was how you crossed over, how you stopped being a living driver and became an asset in the network, how you ended up in the manifests Johnny had described, transported between mining operations, hauling loads for eternity while the company marked you down as a green check mark because your truck still completed runs even after you joined the dead. The rules weren't folklore, weren't superstition or ritual or arbitrary requirements someone had invented to make the job harder. They were protective protocols. Every single instruction in that manila envelope was designed to keep me separate from what I was hauling, to maintain the boundary between living and dead, to ensure I completed the run without crossing over into the supernatural network I was serving. Ignore all hitchhikers, because picking them up would mean inviting the dead into the cab with me, blurring the line between driver and cargo. Never stop between mile markers 8 and 16, because stopping in the collection zone meant the road could claim me, could decide I belonged to it instead of the living world. Maintain exactly 35 mph, because speed too fast or too slow would mark me as different from the spectral traffic using this route, would make me stand out, would draw attention. Keep the radio tuned to 920, because that frequency connected to the network, and monitoring it meant I could hear what was happening around me, could stay aware of the dead without joining them. Take the upper bridge at Devil's Fork, because the lower bridge was the trap, the illusion, the choice that would have separated me from the route and stranded me in the zone where boundaries didn't hold. I was transporting the dead through an elaborate supernatural network that stretched across Appalachian coal country, moving miners who'd died in cave-ins and explosions and methane fires and black lung to active operations where their spectral labor supplemented living crews. Highway 1 and 19 served as a collection point during the 3-hour window when barriers thinned enough to gather workers from across decades of mining history. And the rules were the only thing keeping me from becoming part of what I was hauling. Mile marker 16 appeared in my headlights. I passed it doing exactly 35, and something in the air changed. Lighter somehow, less pressure, like I'd been holding weight I hadn't consciously noticed until it lifted. The no-stop zone was behind me. I kept driving, hands steady now, understanding, settling into my bones with cold clarity. I didn't know the full scope yet. Didn't know how many routes existed or how many drivers were running them or how far the network extended beyond eastern Kentucky's mining operations. But I knew enough. Knew what I was carrying. Knew what the rules protected me from. Knew that every driver marked with a red X on Bentley's spreadsheet had broken protocol and joined the workforce they were supposed to be transporting. The manila envelope sat on the passenger seat. 8 rules that had seemed insane 12 miles ago now making terrifying, perfect sense. The GPS coordinates led to a gravel lot behind an abandoned tipple, the kind of structure that hadn't processed coal since before I was born. Rusted conveyor framework rose against the pre-dawn sky, and sodium lights on tall poles created pools of orange illumination across cracked pavement. A white pickup truck sat near a prefab office trailer, clean and new enough to look wrong against the industrial decay. I pulled the rig to a stop where the lot widened, killed the engine. 2 people emerged from the trailer before I'd climbed down from the cab. A woman in a business suit with a safety vest over it, blonde hair neat despite the hour. A man built heavy, balding, wearing an expensive suit that didn't fit right across his shoulders. Both carried clipboards. Both smiled. The woman reached me first, hand extended. "Mr. Aguilar, Marilyn Simpson receiving supervisor. This is Gregory Solomon, operations manager." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, professional. Gregory's handshake squeezed harder than necessary. "Successful run." Marilyn's tone suggested she was asking about a grocery delivery. "Made it through." "Excellent." She checked her clipboard. "Let's verify the manifest while Gregory coordinates unloading." Gregory walked past me toward the trailer, pulling a radio from his belt. His voice carried across the gravel. "Shift 7 transport has arrived. Prepare receiving bay 3 for personnel transfer." Personnel transfer, not cargo, not equipment. Marilyn led me toward the office trailer, her heels crunching on gravel. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over a desk covered in spreadsheets and route maps. A coffee maker burbled in the corner. the smell almost normal except for the faint mineral scent underneath. The same underground smell from the no-stop zone. Coffee? She didn't wait for an answer, pouring 2 cups into styrofoam. Handed me one. I took it. Didn't drink. She sat behind the desk, opened a folder. Your first Highway 119 run went smoothly. No protocol violations, proper adherence to timing windows, successful delivery of assigned workforce. Workforce? My voice came out flat. Yes. She looked up, met my eyes. No discomfort there. No guilt. The men you transported from collection point to operational assignment. Johnny Oliver's crew primarily. Shift 7 from the old Black Mountain operations. They've been in rotation for 47 years now. Very reliable. I set the coffee down. They're dead. Deceased, yes, but contractually obligated. Marilyn pulled out another document, turned it toward me. Columns of names, dates, shift assignments. The mining company maintains agreements with supernatural workforce providers throughout Appalachia. Has for decades. We utilize spectral labor in extraction operations that would be prohibitively dangerous for living miners. Gregory entered the trailer, his bulk filling the doorway. Unloading complete. Shift 7 reporting to collapsed section work in Shaft 12. Thank you, Gregory. Marilyn made a notation on her spreadsheet. Gregory poured himself coffee, leaned against the wall. You understand what you hauled, Mr. Aguilar. Dead miners. Contracted employees working their assigned shifts. His tone held correction, like I'd used the wrong terminology in a business meeting. They extract coal from seams too unstable for living crews. Work in gas-filled chambers where methane concentrations would kill breathing workers. Access collapsed sections that MSHA would never approve for conventional operations. Marilyn nodded. No oxygen requirements, no light needed beyond what we provide for monitoring purposes, no fatigue, no breaks. They work perpetual shifts in conditions that would violate every safety regulation ever written. And when there's cave-ins? I didn't know why I asked, already knew the answer. They're already deceased. Gregory shrugged, massive shoulders rising. No liability, no injury claims, no workers' compensation, no union complications. My hands wanted to shake. I kept them still. Marilyn pulled out a calculator, entered numbers. Shaft 12 alone produces 17,000 tons monthly from sections that conventional operations couldn't touch. We run similar spectral crews in 9 facilities across eastern Kentucky. The profit margins are extraordinary. You're using dead men. The words felt stupid coming out, obvious. We're utilizing available resources efficiently. Gregory's tone suggested I was being unreasonable. Those men died in mining accidents decades ago. They're bound to the industry that killed them. We simply coordinate their labor assignments and transportation between operational sites. Marilyn closed the folder. Highway 119 serves as a primary collection route. The window between 2 and 5 a.m. provides optimal conditions for gathering workforce from historical disaster sites throughout the coal fields. Your role is transportation logistics, moving assembled crews from collection points to current operational needs. She opened a drawer, pulled out an envelope, plain white, sealed, set it on the desk between us. Your payment, quadruple standard rate as promised. I picked up the envelope. Heavy. Opened it. Cash. More than I'd made in the past month combined. Enough to cover the mortgage payment with money left over. Something else inside. A photograph. I pulled it out. My ex-wife's bedroom. Taken from inside, near the closet. Sarah asleep in bed. Blonde hair across the pillow, completely unaware. The angle showed her alarm clock, 3:47 a.m. The date stamp in the corner read 2 days ago. The envelope fell from my hand. Cash scattered across the desk. Marilyn's expression didn't change. We take care of our contractors, Mr. Aguilar. Ensure they understand the value of continued professional relationships. Gregory pushed off the wall, moved closer. You've seen things tonight that most people don't believe exist. You've transported cargo that shouldn't be possible. You know what happens to drivers who break protocol. Danny Kowalski, I said. Voice rough. Amy Chen. They made poor decisions. Marilyn gathered the scattered cash, placed it back in the envelope with the photograph. Violated their route instructions. Joined the workforce they were contracted to transport. But you, Gregory smiled, followed every rule precisely. Demonstrated reliability, professional competence, the kind of qualities we value in regular contractors. The trailer door opened. A woman entered, tall and lean, dark hair pulled back, wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than my truck payment. She carried a leather portfolio. Mr. Aguilar. She extended her hand. Gail Banks, Contractor Relations. I didn't move. She lowered her hand, unbothered. Opened the portfolio on the desk. We'd like to offer you regular runs on the Highway 119 route. Weekly assignments, same rate structure. Steady income for reliable transportation of workforce between collection points and operational assignments. Moving dead miners. Had to say it plain. Facilitating essential logistics for ongoing extraction operations. Gail pulled out a contract, set it beside the envelope of cash. 3 runs per week. $12,000 monthly. Guaranteed minimum. I stared at the papers, the numbers. Highway 119 operates on a fixed schedule. Gail's voice stayed smooth, professional. Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday nights. Same collection point, same timing windows, same protocols. You've already demonstrated you can follow the rules. We simply need consistent, reliable transportation. And if I say no, already knew that answer too. Gail reached across the desk, tapped the photograph. Your ex-wife lives on Maple Street, apartment 2B. Works the evening shift at St. Joseph's Hospital. Drives a blue Honda Civic, parks in the back lot. Her boyfriend stays over Wednesdays and Fridays. My jaw clenched. You're threatening her. We're establishing that we maintain thorough operational awareness. Gregory's bulk shifted closer, and that our logistics network extends beyond supernatural workforce transportation. Marilyn leaned forward. You have debts, Mr. Aguilar. Mortgage payments, child support, truck maintenance costs. The standard routes you've been running barely cover expenses. This opportunity provides financial stability for hauling dead men to work shifts in mines that should be condemned, for transporting contracted labor to assigned operational sites. Gail pushed the contract closer. Appalachia's industrial dead are going to work those shifts regardless of your participation. The mining operations will continue. The spectral workforce will be deployed. We're simply offering you the opportunity to benefit from necessary logistics rather than struggling with conventional freight runs that keep you one breakdown away from bankruptcy. She pulled a pen from her jacket, set it on the contract. Sign tonight, you'll have your first weekly run this Sunday. Refuse and we'll find another driver. But Mr. Aguilar... Her eyes locked on mine. Drivers who decline our offers tend to experience unfortunate complications, equipment failures on dangerous routes, brake problems on mountain roads, the kind of accidents that leave families without providers. The photograph sat on the desk. Sarah asleep, unaware someone had stood in her bedroom. Gregory picked up the envelope of cash, held it out. Take tonight's payment. Think about the offer. But understand, you've already seen too much to walk away clean. You're either an asset or a liability, and we don't maintain liabilities. I took the envelope. The weight of it felt wrong in my hand. Gail smiled. We'll be in touch before Sunday. The Highway 119 route is yours if you want it, Mr. Aguilar. Steady income, reliable schedule, simple transportation work. All you have to do is keep following the rules and moving Appalachia's industrial dead between their assigned operations. The coffee in my hand had gone cold. Didn't remember picking it up again after seeing that photograph, but my fingers were wrapped tight around the styrofoam, denting the sides. They had all the pieces: living drivers hauling dead miners between work sites, Johnny Oliver and his crew spending 47 years in rotation, moving between collapsed shafts and methane-filled chambers that would kill anyone with lungs that still needed air. Highway 119 collecting them during the 3-hour window when whatever separated the living from the dead got thin enough to let the industrial ghosts cross over. And me in the middle, my truck serving as the transport vessel that kept this whole operation running. I set the cup down on Marilyn's desk, tried to keep my hand steady. The system made perfect sense once you looked at it straight. Mining companies needed labor for sections no living crew could reach. The dead needed... What? Johnny hadn't said, hadn't explained what kept those men showing up shift after shift, decade after decade, moving through rotted trestles and abandoned highways to work chambers that had killed them the first time. But the companies had found a way to use them, transport them, schedule them on spreadsheets and manifests like any other resource, and drivers who broke protocol joined the workforce. Danny Kowalski, Amy Chen, others whose names I'd seen on Bentley's spreadsheet with red X's beside them. Still driving, Gregory had said. Still hauling loads, just not living anymore. "You're seeing it now." Gail's voice cut through my thoughts. She'd moved closer, standing beside Marilyn's desk with that leather portfolio tucked under one arm. How it all connects. I looked up at her. Professional expression, expensive suit, the kind of confidence that came from holding all the cards. She wasn't wrong. Living drivers desperate enough to take quadruple rate runs on closed highways, I said, heard my voice coming out flat. Dead miners bound to the industry that killed them, companies profiting from both. Efficient resource allocation. Gregory shifted his weight against the wall. Existing infrastructure, available labor, market demand. Marilyn's pen tapped against her clipboard. 3 quick clicks. "You're not the first driver to understand the scope, Oscar, but you are sitting here having this conversation, which means you followed protocol. That puts you in a very specific category. The category of drivers who might live long enough to make multiple runs. The ones with green check marks instead of red X's. My grandfather had hummed those work songs. Died 9 years back with black lung eating his insides, 30 years after he'd left the mines. Used to tell me the coal got into everything. Your clothes, your skin, your blood. Said some men never really left the shafts, even after they stopped going down. Hadn't understood what he meant. Not then. 3 runs a week, Gail said. Opened her portfolio and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Contract looked like. Dense text in small print, but the header was clear enough. Independent contractor agreement. Specialized transport services. Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. Same route, same timing window, same protocols. 12,000 monthly guaranteed minimum. She set it on the desk in front of me. The photograph of Sarah's bedroom sat right beside it, alarm clock showing 3:47 a.m., date stamp proving they'd been inside her house while she slept. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. I could take the runs, follow the rules, haul dead miners between their eternal work sites 3 times a week, keep my truck, make my mortgage payments, send Sarah her child support without the bank account scraping empty every month, live with knowing I was part of a system that used the industrial dead for profit, that treated men like Johnny Oliver as resources to be transported and scheduled and worked until... what? Forever? However long spectral labor lasted. Or I could refuse. Walk away from this trailer with tonight's payment and try to pretend I'd never driven Highway 119, never seen the figures in work clothes flagging me down, never watched rotted timber hold solid under 18 tons because the rules said it would. And then what? Gregory had made it clear. Drivers who saw too much and didn't cooperate experienced complications. Equipment failures. Brake problems on mountain roads. the kind of accidents that left families without providers. And that photograph. Sarah sleeping, unaware someone had stood in her bedroom at 3:47 in the morning, close enough to her closet to frame the shot. They knew her address, her work schedule, where she parked, when her boyfriend visited. Their logistics network extended way beyond supernatural workforce transportation. I picked up the contract. The paper felt ordinary. Regular weight, standard print, the kind of thing I'd signed 100 times for freight companies and depot supervisors. But the text kept using phrases like specialized cargo and temporal window compliance, and protocol adherence requirements. Legal language wrapped around the supernatural. What happens to them? My voice came out rougher than I'd intended. The miners, Johnny's crew, all of them. Marilyn's expression didn't change. They fulfill their contractual obligations. They're dead. They're assets. Gregory pushed off from the wall, moved closer. Bound to the work that killed them. We didn't create that binding, Oscar. We just coordinate the logistics. Gail's pen appeared in her hand. Expensive ballpoint, polished chrome. The dead will work these shifts regardless of your participation. The mines need their labor. The system exists. You're simply deciding whether to benefit from necessary operations or struggle with conventional routes that barely cover your overhead. She was right. That was the worst part. Johnny Oliver and his crew would keep riding Highway 119 whether I drove them or someone else did. The spectral workforce would keep extracting coal from collapsed sections and methane-filled chambers. The mining companies would keep profiting. Appalachia's industrial dead would keep serving the industry that had killed them. My participation didn't change any of that. Just changed whether I could make my mortgage payment. I thought about the bank notices piling up on my kitchen counter. Second notice, final notice, the progression I'd been watching for months. Thought about my truck's transmission, the grinding noise that had started last week, the repair estimate I couldn't afford. Thought about Sarah's face when the child support check bounced 2 months back, the disappointment she'd tried to hide over the phone. Thought about standing in that trailer at mile marker 12, watching dozens of dead men in formation, hearing Johnny Oliver explain how the road tried to make living engines match its nature, how drivers who broke protocol crossed over, how Danny Kowalski and Amy Chen were still driving but not living anymore. The rules kept you separate, long as you followed them exactly, maintained that 35 mph, ignored the hitchhikers, offered cigarettes without speaking, took the upper bridge even when the lower one looked safer. Long as you stayed inside the protocol, you stayed living. And living drivers with green check marks made $12,000 monthly guaranteed. My mortgage was $1,800, child support another $1,100, truck insurance, fuel costs, maintenance, the transmission repair I'd been putting off. Standard freight runs brought in maybe $4,000 monthly when the routes were good, less when they weren't. I'd been running numbers for 6 months, watching the gap between income and expenses widen every week. $12,000 monthly changed everything, paid the bills, fixed the truck, maybe even built up some savings against the next crisis. 3 nights a week, same route, same protocols. Just had to keep following the rules. Just had to keep hauling the dead. I set the contract back down. The photograph caught my eye again. Sarah's bedroom, that alarm clock, the proof of how thoroughly they'd established control. Gregory had been clear about what happened to drivers who refused after seeing too much. Unfortunate complications, equipment failures, brake problems. They weren't making an offer. They were explaining the terms of my continued employment. The runs start this Sunday? My hand was steady now, voice too. Something had settled inside me. Some decision I'd probably made the moment I answered Karen's call about the emergency run. Maybe even earlier, back when I first saw those bank notices and knew I was drowning. Gail's professional smile widened half an inch. 2:15 a.m. departure from Hazard Depot. Same protocols as tonight. Bentley will have your manifest ready. And I just keep following the 8 rules. Exactly. Marilyn tapped her pen against the clipboard again. 3 clicks, precise rhythm. Protocol compliance keeps you in the living driver category. That's the only category that receives payment. Gregory picked up the envelope of cash from where it had fallen, held it out again. Tonight's run. $4,000 for successful delivery. Consider it a signing bonus. I took the envelope. The bills felt real enough. Counted out to $4,000 exactly. Mix of hundreds and fifties. More money than I'd made all last month combined. Gail placed the pen on top of the contract. Chrome caught the fluorescent light. Standard independent contractor terms, compensation structure, scheduling requirements, protocol adherence clauses, sign at the bottom. The pen was heavy in my hand, expensive weight, balanced. I scanned the contract text, dense paragraphs about specialized transport services and temporal compliance and liability waivers. One section caught my eye. Contractor acknowledges the unique nature of assigned cargo and agrees to maintain absolute confidentiality regarding operational procedures, timing windows, and workforce specifications. Confidentiality about the dead miners, about Highway 119 and the spectral labor network, about everything I'd seen tonight. Another section, violation of established protocols may result in immediate contract termination and permanent reassignment to alternative operational categories. Permanent reassignment. That's what they called it when drivers crossed over and joined the workforce they'd been hauling. When living drivers became dead ones, their trucks added to the fleet running supernatural cargo through abandoned highways. I signed at the bottom. My handwriting looked steady. Oscar Aguilar, dated November 17, 2023, 4:38 a.m., according to the clock on Marilyn's wall. Gail took the contract, slipped it back into her leather portfolio. Welcome to regular operations, Oscar. We'll have your Sunday manifest ready by Friday. Same pickup location, same timing window, same protocols. She extended her hand. I shook it. Firm professional grip, the kind that sealed business deals and employment contracts. Gregory shook next, that same too hard squeeze, his smile showing too many teeth. Marilyn stayed seated but nodded, making a note on her clipboard. You made the right choice, Gregory said. Financially speaking. I folded the envelope of cash, tucked it into my jacket pocket next to the now empty manila envelope that had held the 8 rules. The weight felt significant. $4,000. First installment of $12,000 monthly. Payment for serving as a conduit between the living and the dead. For hauling Johnny Oliver's crew and whoever else showed up in my trailer during those 3-hour windows when Highway 119 opened up. The right choice. That's what he'd said. But standing in that prefab trailer with fluorescent lights humming overhead and the mineral smell of underground coffee filling the air, I understood I'd made the only choice available. My financial desperation had trapped me just as thoroughly as whatever bound those dead miners to their eternal shifts. Different mechanism, same result. I was integrated into the system now, part of the logistics network that profited from both living need and spectral labor. Gregory walked me to the door while Marilyn and Gail stayed at the desk, already discussing next week's scheduling. The gravel crunched under my boots, same sound as when I'd arrived, but everything felt different now. The sodium lights cast the same yellow glow across the cracked pavement, but I was seeing it as an employee instead of a contractor, someone with regular assignments instead of one-time emergency runs. My truck sat where I'd parked it, trailer empty now, Shift 7 already reporting to Shaft 12's collapsed section. The cab door opened with its familiar creak. I climbed inside, set the envelope of cash on the passenger seat where the manila envelope with the 8 rules had been. The engine turned over smooth. Temperature gauge read normal. Everything functioning like it should. Like tonight's overheating at mile marker 12 had never happened. I put the truck in gear, pulled out of the gravel lot, followed the GPS coordinates back toward the highway. Sunday I'd be back here. Tuesday after that. Thursday. 3 times a week, hauling the industrial dead between their work sites, following 8 rules that kept me separated from the cargo, maintaining that boundary between living driver and spectral workforce. Long as I followed protocol, I stayed in the category that received payment instead of permanent reassignment,